Our first topic this evening is the Sapper Apprentices. Now, apprenticeship is something that you see discussed occasionally on the news broadcast, and occasionally there'll be an article in the newspaper about what Ontario in particular should be doing to try to improve its system for training tradesmen, developing tradesmen, keeping them gainfully employed. These discussions tend to be almost haphazard. I haven't followed a common thread over the last 10 years of where the provincial government is trying to go with respect to apprenticeship. I've seen some excellent apprenticeship programs in my neighborhood where we have a couple of technicians who take on young high school students, and 1 day a week they go out on the job and they learn the trade through a fairly organized apprenticeship program. That seems to be working. We don't have a national program. I don't think we've ever had a national program. One of the exceptions was with the Canadian Army back in the early 50s. At that time, the Army was recognizing through its review of its personnel, their career, the likely organization of the forces over the next 10 years, there were some real problems with personnel, particularly an age bubble that was there. A lot of the forces at that time were Second World War that had stayed on. They were running into the challenges, this is the early 50s, of sending forces over to Korea, and also looking at forming the new formed brigade in Germany. So there was a real personnel problem. One of the challenges was going to be that of trying to maintain a continuity. How were they going to be able to provide well-trained, well-qualified, good leaders over the next 20-year period? The solution was to look very seriously at an apprenticeship program. 1953, the Army started an apprenticeship program across several of the corps. Signals, engineers, armor, Service Corps, Ordnance Corps. Not all corps took it on, but a large number did. The program ran from 1953 to 1967. A 2-year program taking young pre-high school graduate students, taking them to the corps schools and subjecting them to about 2 years of combined trades training and academic training. From the engineer's point of view, an extremely successful program. Over that period, we trained 850 young sappers. You'll hear from Jerry Duguid this evening the sort of training they went through, and we'll give you an idea of the sort of individuals that we trained and what became of them. In my estimation, the Sapper Apprentices produced the best cohort of young NCO leaders in particular that we'd ever seen. One of the notable graduates of the apprenticeship program was our current Colonel Commandant. And I've found myself over the last 10 or 20 years, when I've been working on things like history and heritage, it's surprising the number of individuals that I have to rely upon who come from that group of Sapper Apprentices. A group with an extremely strong pride in themselves, in their group. You can see it to this very day. One of those rare groups that has annual reunions. An unusual group, and Jerry will give you some description of the characteristics of the group. They were referred to as the Green Monsters. They were referred to by that name for those of us who went through training in Chilliwack at the same time. And Jerry will give you an idea of perhaps why they were called Green Monsters. An example of the quality of the young men that were trained can be seen by a test that the engineers gave themselves. They selected 5 of their best young Sapper apprentices. Remember, these are soldiers that are just into basic training and maximum of 2 years, academic training and basic training. They sent them to Wainwright, where they joined the regular force junior NCO course. Now, those of us who can recall what the junior NCO courses used to be like back in the 60s, those were rough courses. Extremely difficult on the young soldier because they were used to weed out anybody who was not going to be identified as having significant potential for rising in the ranks. Those 5 students that they sent were all in the top 10 of that junior NCO course. That gives you an idea of the quality of the people that were there. So this evening, Jerry is going to tell us about the course. Tell us about what they did, why they did it, and what's become of some of them. Jerry himself joined in the forces in 1962 at the age of 16. Joined the Apprentice training program, served 34 years. Again, as an example of the qualities of many of these Green Monsters, he rose to be the Base Sergeant Major, Base Chilliwack, and he remembers probably his crowning glory with being RSM of 2 CER. So, Sapper apprentices, Green Monsters, a great group of young soldiers, young sappers, young men that contributed immensely to our Corps and still are doing so. Jerry, let's hear about the Green Monsters.
Any resemblance? This guy is still alive. It's me. Before we move on to, I'm going to go back even before that picture was taken. I come from Montreal. I come from an area of Montreal, Point St. Charles. Anybody know about that? It's a blue-collar part of Montreal. Not on the West Island. It's Montreal by the sea. The only thing close to the sea for us at that time was the Montreal dump, which we enjoyed immensely. Shooting rats with bows and arrows and bringing home big bags of marshmallows that my mother would just hate me for. Went to high school in Verdun, and while in high school in 1962, if you know that, the Vietnam War was just raging then, and I wanted to go to Vietnam. First of all, I wanted to be a soldier. A lot of kids want to be firemen, they want to be policemen, they want to be an ambulance driver. I wanted to be a soldier. That's all I wanted to do. I practiced that from the age of 5. Camouflage, using shoe polish, anything. I just loved it. So when I told my dad I wanted to go to Vietnam, he said to me, well, you know, if you do that, your mom and I won't feel good about that. So we had a little discussion. I went to school. I got a hold of my guidance counselor. And he said to me, you know what, there's a thing in the Canadian Army called the Apprentice Plan. It'd be great for you, Jerry. No, I wasn't the best academic student. You know, I did well, didn't work hard at it. Had a great time in high school. Played football, played some other sports. In the summer, I raced canoes for Grand Trunk Boating Club. And I said, he said, yeah, and you get paid. And they play football. Oh, a dream come true. A soldier and play football. So here I am. My journey starts in Fort PD, Personnel Depot in Montreal. I remember it distinctly, taking the bus across the Jacques-Cartier Bridge. They gave me 2 bus tickets from the recruiting center. A young man of 16 years old on a big bus trip across the bridge. First time in my life I ever went across the bridge. Fort PD, got in there. There were 110 kids like me. This sergeant showed up, I think he was in the medical corps, got us in sort of a gaggle of 3 ranks. He said, okay, this first third won't be here tomorrow morning, so don't unpack everything. So you stand here anyway. And so then went in, got coveralls, come down. Next morning, sure enough, we're down to 2 thirds. Day 2, we're down to a third. Day 3, we're down to maybe 20. Day 5, I'm standing in front of this captain, pledging allegiance to my queen and my country, and there were 4 of us. Made the cut. 5 days to do that, proudest day of my life. On day 2, I got a pair of coveralls. Huh? Uniform. I tell you, didn't have to press them. That's all we wore. When we weren't doing testing, we were sweeping the streets with a broom, putting garbage out. I loved it, and I got 3 meals a day, which you had to eat. Come on. And I thought I was being paid. Not true. Okay, so there we go. First of all, I want to thank Kevin Patterson for inviting me here. Kevin attended our last reunion, and as Ken said, every Thanksgiving weekend in Chilliwack is an Apprentice reunion. And we go there, and the last one was very significant because we dedicated the saluting base out there in Chilliwack, and the apprentices had a lot to do with that. And so we did that, and there was representation from every intake was there. It was very moving for us apprentices. Football team. The RCSME football team. It's the only reason I went to Chilliwack. I didn't know I was going to be an engineer until my father asked me. He said, what are you going to do? I said, I'm going to play football. No. What are you in? My paperwork? Oh, engineers. I didn't know. Now, they mentioned it, of course, there, but I was so wired, I had no idea. Yeah. There's a football game. 4th, 5th, and 6th intake. When I got there, they had never heard of football. Maybe in Vancouver, but not there. Here's my football, had my cleats. I'm ready to go. I was a great defensive end. Not gonna happen. Murder ball. Murder ball. If any of you played murder ball in the forces? Yeah, the apprentice, it was the time to decapitate, to become a eunuch. All kinds of things happened. Oh, okay. Somebody told me at RMC they only had 1 button.
Yeah, it's helpful.
There we go. So, the 6th, this is the Green Monster. Ken had said we were nicknamed the Green Monsters, for 2 reasons. But I guess we were. Here we were, a bunch of young lads there in Chilliwack, age 16, 17 years old. And combined into one area of Chilliwack. For those of you who know Chilliwack as it used to be, just in front of the QM, there was a series of 8 shots, and that was our lines. Nobody else can go in there except the padre. He could go at any time, any other time, but other than that, nobody else. And that's where we stayed. In those 8 shots, the senior intake on one side and the junior intake on the other. Another set of 8 shots, the junior and the senior intake. So you know what that was like? And that was sort of the setup, and I'll tell you more about that. Who coined us the Green Monsters? It was a great Canadian, Pierre Burton. Because there was some press and some other things, and he, in fact, coined us Green Monsters. At the time, he was a writer for a Toronto newspaper, I believe. For those of you who know Toronto, a small city in Ontario. What's that? So that's where that Green Monster comes. Now also, part of our dress, as a junior intake, you wore 1 green stripe on your shoulder. As a senior intake, you wore 2 on each of your applicants. And that signified junior and senior. So when you landed in Chilliwack, they greeted you at the train station. So I got off my first big train trip from Montreal, off just like this, right? Mountains, what's that smell? Fresh air. This guy comes over, this corporal, and says, you, screaming, like screaming, can you imagine? It was only me there. Are you Dugan? I said, yes, I'm Jerry. Yeah, Steve. Oh, they didn't say Jerry, I said Gerald. He said, I know Gerald. Are you Dugan? Yes. So away I went. got in the back of a truck all by myself, drove from Chilliwack down, got booted out in front of the hay hut. In I went in the shack. The hay hut there was 24 bed spaces, of which everyone was occupied. You own a bed. Eventually you got a barrack box. You had a bedside table with a lamp. You had a locker where your weapon was kept. There were 5 drawers in the locker. Each drawer had a specific thing that was in it. Your top drawer consisted of your shoe brushes, your button stick, your shoe shine rag, your shoe polish. Your second drawer had some of your ablutions in there. Oh, your hold all with all your shaving kit in it, your toothbrush, your razor blades, and I'll tell you more about that in a minute. And your third drawer had your socks, all neatly folded, black and white. The next drawer had your shirts. The next one was miscellaneous, of which there was no Playboys, no this, no that. So I could never figure out miscellaneous. Whatever I had in there was wrong anyway. And they never told you what was supposed to be. That was it. So that's what you had. Oh, on your bedside table, your little bedside table. You see the little bedside table there? There's a little picture. You're allowed a picture of your mother or your girlfriend, but not both. You know what I said? So some guy said, like, my mom is dead and I don't have a girlfriend. What did I just say? Your mother or your girlfriend are not both. So what we used to do is go down to Woolworths when we had our one day and buy the Woolworths. You ever been to Woolworths? You know the picture, they'd have a picture frame with some really nice looking young girl in there. So we all had the same girl. Nobody, to my knowledge, ever put their mother's picture. To my knowledge. Now, I could be wrong. Somebody out there, somebody will hear it and say, oh, I had a picture of my mom, good for you. But not in the 11th intake. Eventually, I did get a girlfriend, and it was a girlfriend's picture in it. I might have had 2. Now, that's our kit layout. Every morning, once we got our uniform, which they had to order smaller uniforms for us apprentices, every morning for 1 year, we stood by our locker and had a kit layout. On that kit layout was a bedroll. You see that thing that looks like a Mae West? That's 3 blankets and 2 sheets and a pillowcase. You made that every morning except Saturdays. Saturdays you can make your bed hospital style, but you still have to be up at 6 o'clock. You put on your KD pants, a t-shirt, and you're able to get under the first blanket only. If by chance you took a chance and decided to slide into the sheets, criminal offense, you'd get CB for that at least 7 days. Or disobedience of a lawful command. Because not only did they tell you, it was written so. Well, you were done. So we did that. All our meals, 3 meals a day, you marched to. Up until Christmas, you went down the back road. Never on a paved road, because you weren't fit for any human being to look at. Went into the mess hall. The apprentices sat on the right-hand side as you went into the old mess hall. Senior intake, junior intake. 3 field in the middle. They could do whatever they want. And on the other side, recruit squadron. Recruit squadron was a 6 months training. The red flashes were recruit training. Blue, they were doing core training. And in 6 months, look, 6 months. At the end of it, I found that we were just slow, but not slow. 2 years to do what they did in 6 months. On our bed for inspection was your small pack, your large pack, your basic pouches, your L straps. The best running shoe in the world. The white runner. Have any of you experienced that? You wonder why. Now, Canada's paying for my feet. When I had to be subjected to them things, which had a sole, 1/4 inch, if that, with enough capo on there and weighted so that no breath of air. And you only had 1 pair of them. And they had to be like that every morning. And then we had our boots ankle black and our low shoes, which had to be not shone, but I mean like mirrors. And also on the instep had to be shone. God forbid you had a twisted bootlace. How can people live with twisted bootlaces? I often thought as a kid, well, what would happen if I had a twisted bootlace? Would I get hardened to get the arteries? Like, what would happen? Dimming the vision, maybe. I don't know. Tightening of the chest? No. Nuclear biologicals. Maybe that's the cause. I don't know. Then there was bed springs, which they checked and did all that. And then your locker, of course, had your clothes in it. No civilian clothes until the second year. Dear Dugan called up my mom. Send me out my clothes. Oh, yes, dear. Big box came. My troop sergeant, Sergeant Cliff Downey, who I'll say because he's a wonderful man, drove me into Chilliwack train station. Says, oh, I said, I got this parcel. Oh, he said, I'll phone. Guy said, it's a big box, so I'll take it. Took me down. He said, what's in the box? I mean, a big box. Everything I own. My Ivy League stuff, you know, my nice pants, you know, 12-inch pig, you know, all the wonderful stuff that a kid has. Brought it back. Let me give you a hand, he said. You probably want to put that up in your rat's nest, which is a little storage area in the top of your locker. He gave me a hand. Next morning I have an inspection. Because we're allowed out Wednesday night till 10 o'clock, 6 to 10. Friday we're allowed out till 10 o'clock. Saturday till midnight. Huh? Bed check at midnight, bed check at 10 o'clock. Doing that. And then on Sunday, of course, you weren't allowed out because you belong to God. Sunday does. So that was the whole routine there. Monday or the following week, the anniversary of me getting my civilian clothes, which was on a Wednesday, I come back and all my civvy clothes were spread from one end of that building to the other. And on a note on my box, neatly written, was "Come and see me, Sergeant Downey." So I had to go see him, which is not pleasant when you see your troop sergeant. You see a corporal, not too bad, see a sergeant. So at seeing him, he said, give me the whole big story so you know what's going to happen to them. Yeah. So we got to pack them all up. Before I had to pack them all up, I had to wash them, iron them to his specifications, fold them right, make sure everything was done, socks ironed, everything, put them back in the box. Like, you won't get them back till next year. Which I did. Never got, that was all I had to do was wash them. So when you're an apprentice, you in fact wash and clean everything. This is our troop. We started off with 33. I was in the 11th intake, and an intake is like Ken said is a corps, which lasts for 2 years. And we got paid. Because I was 17 when I got there, I joined up, I was 16, I turned 17 in June the 8th, if anybody wants to send me a gift. June the 8th, an important date, like December 25th. Jerry Dugan's birthday. You can reach me in Bridgenorth, 715 Steinkraus, watch the tape after if you forget. All right. And at the end, there was 24 of us that graduated. Now, the other thing I could do was to be in the band, the Rainmakers. Does anybody know Corporal Victor Procure, who I think became a Master Warrant Officer? Great guy. He had the awfulest job in the world to be in charge of the band. Well, that's the 11th intake band, and I'm a drummer there, right here. You can probably tell. Yeah. And so every intake had a band. We had our band. It was a drum and bugle band. At that time, every squadron had a drum and bugle band. Every band in the brigade had a drum and bugle band. So when we finally got to a brigade, and they had a brigade parade, everybody had a band, different cadence. It was like no wonder it rained. So we did that, and that was great. We used to be trained. They used to send us over to take music lessons with the RCE band. Because we were apprentices and we were able to absorb that, I guess. None. None. They sent me to the percussion guy, who was a wonderful man. All of us went to learn how to read music and play, what, Anchors Away? Yeah, so we did that. And that was fun. Now, when you first come in, these are all the rules and regulations. First of all, the standards. Highest dress, sports, I'll talk about that in a few minutes, the way we live. But do not drink, borrow, or lend money. That was a big business in the apprentices, borrow and lending money for a little fee. And don't damage any property, take care of your uniform. Oh yeah. Activity, social club. What was that? I looked for 2 years for the social club. You know, I thought social club was like the chess club in high school. You know, eventually you'd get to a nice room with hardwood, cigars, and brandy. If you were in the social club. I don't know what that. Yearbook, I was on that committee. The outdoor club, I was on that. Now you can imagine, in the Army, in the Apprentices, the outdoor club. How do you visualize this? Maybe take a yacht, you know, cruise around. You know, no. Outdoor club, did you see that mountain? We're not going up, we're going over. And then on the other side, there's going to be some boats that are going to meet us. Oh, okay. So away we went with our boots ankle black, climbing these mountains, over the top, down the other side, through the snow, through the woods, just looking for Sasquatch, because you know they're alive and doing well in Chilliwack. And got to the other side, the boats were there, and back we came. So that was my experience with the outdoor club. Did I have fun? No, not really. But we all went. There was no thing need volunteers for. There was no thing for volunteers. First of all, I never volunteered for anything. It's one thing in the Army, you know that. You don't volunteer. We need a volunteer. Okay, you three go. Yep. Apprentices were taught that. Don't volunteer for anything. So one thing we did do in the Apprentices is we went to school for half the year. So in the mornings we went to school. When you joined, there had to be a minimum of grade 8 education. Now this is 1962. And you had to be physically fit. For an engineer, I always say you had to be 5'8" so you can work the panels to get, and the transoms to get through the diamond in the panel. And if you're any taller than that, you'd have scar tissue on your forehead. And everybody had scar tissue by the end of your field engineer career on your shins from banging into these things in the middle of the night. Or you don't have a leg. Anyway, so we did high school, and it was just wonderful. We had a group of teachers, I tell you, they should all get the Order of Canada if they're still living. Can you imagine trying to teach us? Well, they did. I came in with grade 10, left with grade 12. It didn't matter what you came with 8, you left as a 10. You know why? Because homework was 2-hour mandatory every night. 2 hours. So when you first get there, you're real keener, you do your work in school, and you don't have homework. So the corporal would come by after supper, where's your homework? Sense of pride, I don't have any. I did it all in school. You go away, come back with a library book, read that, I want a book report next week, same time. After that, what do you think happened with homework? Everybody had homework. So that's the way it worked. We did great. There were some academic failures, not many, but we did really well. So once again, the discipline part, tests, we did that. And then we were tested on our provincial exams in Chilliwack at the high school. In we'd go, we'd all march in there with our white wall haircuts, of course. A few moans and groans from the other kids in high school. We'd sit and write our exams, and we all did extremely well. Those teachers, God bless them, I tell you, they did it. You talk about imprinting, you talk about getting things done. They made sure they taught us to a standard way higher than the expectation at that time at the provincial level. So we did really, really well. You notice the haircuts, our expenditure on our money, which I said was $112 a month, divide that in half, that's what you got every 2 weeks. You bought 3 haircut tickets for $1. You bought 1 can of shoe polish once a month. You bought 1 can of Brasso once a month. You bought a shoe shine kit, and you bought razor blades and toothpaste once a month. Were we out of shoe polish? Yeah. Were we out of Brasso? Yeah. I got shoe polish at home. I mean, you know, I buy another because it could be fossilized. I don't know. You can't even boil it and drink it. It's done. So that's what we had to do. That was our dress, battle dress, boots highly shone, putties, all that good stuff. Oh, there's our teachers. Look at them guys. They look worried. I look at that picture, I don't know how many times. The guy with the glasses on the far left, you might know him, Mr. Pollock. He eventually, when the apprentices were disbanded, he went to trades training and taught math there forever. Every time I'd go back to Chilliwack as a warrant officer, as a master warrant officer, as a chief warrant officer, Mr. Pollock was still there, and he'd say, "You still in?" "Oh, because of the math 160. You made me pass it." Man. Yeah. So there they are. They were actually academic geniuses, I thought. And the subject you took was science, math, and literature. So literature, hard English, which we called it. Math was every aspect of math. And it was just absolutely great. All sat there every morning and did that. Except when the Cuban crisis arose, we really thought that we were going. This is it. Some kids 16, some kids 17, we're going to Cuba. Big stogie. Didn't get it. Boxing. Along with academics, in the afternoons was our field engineer training, which took every aspect of that, and also our athletics. We had 2 hours of PT a day, included some athletics. Athletics were boxing, track and field with those wonderful running shoes on there, cross country, may as well go barefoot, did that. Tabloid sports, which was an array of almost like circuit training, climb the rope, move stuff back and forth, do all those things. Volleyball, basketball, hockey team. Ooh, I was the manager. Huh? I ordered the jackets. But anyway, our hockey team was great. All our activities were really good, and we took pride. Oh, and track and field, we did that. So we were active at all seasons. We couldn't compete on base because there was nobody to compete with. So we'd compete with the local high schools, and always did really well. Boxing, of course, they didn't box, so our boxing took place amongst ourselves. Every year, they would have the box-offs in the old gymnasium down at the end of, where the gym was in Chilliwack, like K6. In the back was a boxing ring, and everybody from the base would be there. You'd fight 2 3-minute rounds. Before that, the PTIs would train you in boxing. That was an aspect. So you'd get in there, and they'd pair you off with people you knew that there was a bit of vendetta. So none of this, clutch and grab. They'd give you a mouthpiece, put on your gear, and you trained with the big gloves, right? The Donald Duck gloves. For that day, you got the real ones. All of a sudden, this guy is taping your hand, putting the gloves on, a PTI in your corner, a close friend, maybe, and he would bark in your ear, the bell would go, and you'd go out there and go at it. And halfway through the first round, you'd stick your mouthpiece out because you couldn't breathe, right? That'd go. Then the blood would start, ring. If you got to the second round, you'd go out there and do the same thing, and a winner would be declared. Meanwhile, everybody's going crazy. So they did that every year. Finally, the Army stopped boxing because it was too tough. Then they went to judo. Then I don't know what they went after that. Maybe ballroom dancing. But I think they did after that. Unarmed combat came into play, and that was good. And they never did come back to boxing, I think, because it's a skill, as we know, people who get severely injured. This fellow here is a guy by the name of Butch Goody. Anybody know Mike Goody? Butch Goody? Yeah. This is his dad, Butch Goody. He was a PTI, wonderful man. Wonderful man. So here is my intake, the 11th intake. I'm just going to cross it. And you can see in 1962, we had 65 plus sign up. 25 were released AWOL, a lot of AWOL in the first year. Between September and Christmas, a lot of boys heading out the window, heading back. Yeah. They just, They just couldn't take the routine, I guess. It was pretty arduous. It was pretty tough. It was, you know, but you take it as it goes. Some guys just couldn't do it, and that's fine. Went on to bigger and better things. Training failures and failure to adjust. They really tried, but failure to adjust. So I think failure to adjust was first try, second try, third try. They're like, you're done. You're done. There was nobody belligerent in the inspections in the morning. You weren't allowed. Request to return to your family, you can do that. You can say, like, I want to do that. I think not everybody. A lot of people did. Sometimes they talk you out of it. Sometimes they say, you know, probably in the best interest is good for you. So they did. Medical, none. That amazed me. I looked at. No medical releases. Crazy. Yeah. But, yeah, tough. Others, deaf and transfer, 2. Yeah, 2. In our intake was 1 guy. The other 2, I don't know, must have been. I mean, in our troop. Yeah, there was 2. I know the second one. Both in car accidents. And one went to Corps, another one transferred to RCEs. That was close to the end of the training, and they just went right out and just joined the RCE, which was the core group, which was bigger than CE, just put them in there somewhere. Education, you could see, arrived with grade 8, grade 9, 10, 11, and 12, and then moved up the ladder. Training failures, we went to GMT training, field engineer, carpenter, sheet metal, and the rest of the trades are rare. Graduated in 46, that's for both troops. 17 of us were posted directly to the field squadron, and one of those was me, and I enjoyed every minute of it. There's your room after it's been inspected, like all tore apart. So you go in. Now that was taken in Casino Barracks. The H huts were the same way. So you'd come in after your inspection, and you knew if there was room for improvement. First time that happened to me, I said, okay, like where do you start? You know, looking for a razor blade to do your wrists. You know, give me the hot water. But you know, you pick it all up, put it together, and do it. And next week, you'd be fine. You know, you'd be great. But they check for all kinds of things. You know. Yeah. So there it is. You know, room for improvement. Yeah, nowhere to go but up. However, picture of the girlfriend, not move. I mean, how sensitive is that? That's pretty old. I'm touching that. Everything else, it's just like, yeah. Just want to show you something. Over here is your laundry bin. On the door, there was a little wooden thing where you put your dirty laundry. If you dare have dirty laundry there for inspection, and some captain, you never seen a captain, right? A captain was next to God. You know, you had a lieutenant, you seen him once in a while. But the captain would go in there with his Sam Browns on, little stick. I mean, his tea. He would go down there and just go, give you the eye, and then look at something and go. Lift it out your laundry. You hold it under your nose. Is that yours? Some guys just say, no, sir. Yeah, that's fine. I'm proud of that. I made that all myself. So you pay for that. Well, there we all are. So that's the apprentices. Now the big thing in 14 years, like Ken said, 847 enrolled, 237 were released. Can I turn that off somehow?
Put down the remote and walk away, Gary.
Oh, leave it there. 237 were released, 11 were transferred out, and 564 graduated from 1953 to 1967. The things we graduated with: strong leadership skills. First year and second year, you had leadership training, equivalent to junior NCO training, like Ken said. You did that the first year. The second year, you taught yourself it. So you were teaching all the leaders. Drill every day on the parade square, or in the drill hall. We learned every piece of drill, from platoon drill, battalion drill, to sentry drill, ceremonial drill, quick and slow time. We knew it all. And not only that, we were good at it because we congealed as a group. And when you went out there as a troop, when somebody said attention, you heard one crack. That was the end of that. And when you turned, when you're an apprentice, you turned, there was a pause, more than a 2, 3, and then you put your foot in. Apprentices had these idiosyncrasies. When we marched, we didn't, do this. Apprentices marched this way. Just to pee people off. Anybody can do that. It takes a real kid. They used to hate that. We did all that. Haircuts. Like I said, we had white walls, 3 haircuts in 2 weeks. Could that be possible? Anyway, we did it. Yeah. Joe the barber. Next. And so we did that. So underneath your cap belonged to you. So if you can imagine, we all had white walls and all these weird hairdos up top. I didn't. I had probably a little bit more hair than I had now, but not much. But some guys wanted to keep the DA, the big fluffy hair, so they had these weird white walls with all this coiffed hair on top. The other thing that's important to understand is that somehow, with the money that we did get, we managed. We managed to get a cheeseburger from Canucks, French fries, a milkshake. Some guys were known to have to get a hold of adult beverages. How that happened, I don't know. But sometimes you would see an apprentice under the influence of adult beverages. God forbid. But that would happen. And we always had some money in our pocket, a little bit. If you didn't, there was always somebody you could go to and borrow a buck or two for a small fee. First part of our training, from Christmas to New Year's, I managed to save money to fly home to Montreal over Christmas on CP Air. Can you imagine? How did I do that? They took money away from, I must have signed something and said, okay, take this out of my pay and do that. Any other time you went on your leave on troop trains, you got on the train in Chilliwack, I was going to Montreal, 1 car dedicated to apprentices only. It used to cost $90 round trip Montreal, Chilliwack to Montreal, Montreal to Chilliwack, including reams of meal tickets. 1 ticket per meal, so you're on the train, I think, 3 days, 4 nights, something like that. So we had all these meal tickets. Now in coach, there were people who could barely afford coach, looking for a meal. We had all these tickets. Now we didn't have to eat 3 times a day. We were trained. We could do with 1. So those tickets were promptly dispersed to those who could not afford to eat. Huh? Good guys or what? If they wanted to make a donation, so we did that. Senior year, you came back off your summer leave in September, you are now a senior. Bed rolls, only on Wednesdays. CO's inspection, rest hospital style. We were allowed out on Wednesday night till midnight. Weekend passes, if you worked well, if your drill and duties and inspections went well, you get a weekend pass. You could go to Vancouver. Holy snap. I remember that the first time. 4 of us together in the Vancouver. Stayed at the St. Regis Hotel. 4 guys, 1 room. Had a great time. Woke up, Sunday morning, broke. Chill. Never on a Sunday morning did the sun shine, to my knowledge. We had our blues and grays then, because in the second year, you came back. No, in our junior year, after the Christmas holidays, you come back. There was another pay allotment made where we were fitted for our blues and grays. Number 6, 2 shirts, 1 pair of gray pants. The top, of course, which I still have at home, my original tie. Not fit to wear, it's pretty beat up, right? But you got your blues and grays, so when you went out you could wear your blues and grays as a dress, which is number 6. I think it's still number 6 today. Maybe. Somebody say yes.
Yeah,
sure, yeah, that's just 6. So you can still do that. And I had my blues and grays until I was into Field Squadron and the Legion in Newcastle. There was a fire and I had to get out really quick and I left my jacket there. No, there was no fire, I just had to leave. You don't have to worry about it, it's fine. So So then I had to purchase another one, and I still have losing grades, like I'm sure we all do. Then, we were allowed civvies in the senior year. The only thing with the civvies is that the sergeant major had to approve of them. Now, my sergeant major at the time was a guy by the name of Sergeant Major Perry. Anybody know Sergeant Major Perry? A short guy. I don't know how tall he was, 4'9". You have to go into his office with your shirt, your pants, your sweater, your jacket. You'd march in, put them all neatly piled. He would look at you, take your pants, unfold them, measure the cuff. If it was passed, on the back pocket, there was a huge honking stamp. He would stamp it and initial. Shirt was the same way, the jacket was the same way. On your way out the gate, as an apprentice, not hard to tell, the military police, the provo, them time, if they didn't like it, would call you in or keep you out there with your rear to the door. You have to unbuckle your pants, gingerly pull them down, and have to look at your rear pocket so they can see the ATS stamp. And if it wasn't stamped, you'd be reported to the sergeant major. Not pretty. What a jump. Huh? A fashion trendsetter, the sergeant major. What has happened? I love this guy. Yeah. Didn't like my Ivy League shirts, never passed. Never. Said, you wear that? Yes, sir. Not here, you won't. The end of that. So then we all had places where we stashed our good clothes. Your girlfriend's place, your buddy's girlfriend's place. So we all had our stuff we had, regulation stuff, stamped, out the gate, go somewhere, change, put your gear on. You were always changing in the apprentice. Well, I think I've just about covered it all. The big sports competition that went on between us was between us and the artillery. The artillery had a mascot, they had a goat. One year they poured out a goat. Suffered. An awful death. Right there on the parade. It was awful. Yeah. I don't think they had a goat after that. So there's that. We had some tremendous sporting activities against the artillery. And along with the artillery, as Ken said, there was the Ordnance Corps in Montreal, who also trained all the francophones. When we got our francophones that came to us as a senior intake, they came only as our senior intake. They trained as a junior in Montreal, got English language training, and arrived in our intake. So they only experienced the senior intake, little or no hazing while they were in Montreal because of a different sort of demographic. So that's where that was done. Then there was the SIGs in Kingston, Remy in Kingston, Service Corps in Borden, Artillery in Shiloh, us in Chilliwack, and the Medical Corps had apprentices from 53 to 54, shut down in 54 because they couldn't get anybody to sign up because it was too close to Toronto. But anyway, that was the end of that, and the rest of them survived. I know the Service Corps still has their big apprentice reunions in Borden. So there we are, the apprentices. The apprentices, to me, imprinted my life. What I learned there was, one, a sense of levity. Two, sense of discipline, deportment, and pride, and brotherhood. If you were an apprentice, and you survived those 2 years, and you went to a field squadron, first of all, they tagged you for junior NCO material right away. And they would give you lots of responsible jobs. As a 17-year-old, you were doing a lot of things that other fellas, didn't get to there yet. You were very quickly promoted to a lance corporal, and maybe after a couple of weeks, demoted as a lance corporal. And then promoted as a lance corporal. And then demoted, then promoted. Always room for improvement. So they did all that. So probably in your second year in the field squadrons, you went on a junior NCO course. I did. Graduated from that, did very well. Did my training with the Black Watch. Hardcore bunch of people. You talk about regimental stuff. I learned some wonderful regimental stuff there. I don't know how the Black Watch kept up with all the uniforms, to be honest with you. But anyway, did all that, come out of there, became a section commander, and my section was 18 people. Why 18, you say? Because 18 fit to do that. That was the size of your crew. We had a couple of tradesmen in each there. I had some Korean veterans. When I was there, I had a couple of World War II veterans. They were all Group 3, equivalent to our 6A. No leadership. However, when you wanted them to do work, you asked them. You said, okay, we need this job, and would you mind looking after that? And they'd say, sure, I'll look after it. And they would. Great bunch of guys. So there we are. Left that, went on to my career, and I loved every minute of it. I often, throughout my military career, I always referred back to my time as apprentice. And I love it. Should it be there today? Of course, I think it should be in there today. They tried it a few times. They had YTEP. Remember we had a YTEP program? Sort of like that, but never quite got off the ground. Is society ready for an apprenticeship program? I don't know. I can't answer that. You know, my son would have nothing to do with the Army. Nothing to do with that. My grandson, I asked him, no, me, the old guy, been there, done that, and loved it. So, with that, are there any questions? I got all the answers. Some I won't know, a lot of you won't know the difference. Any questions at all? Yes?
Yeah. Did you have any Aboriginals in your class?
Yes, we did. Yeah. Guy by the name of Larry Sinclair. He went on to be a psychiatric nurse in the Winnipeg area. Ed Ashley, who you probably know. Yeah. Doug Heil in my intake, Aboriginal. 3.
I always thought it would have been a great program. We talk about the problems up north. It would be a great program to increase the...
Yeah, well, the engineers used to train the Inuit in heavy equipment at one time. They did very well. So there was an attempt made. Any other questions?
Jerry, you know, we talk about hazing and all that sort of stuff. I mean, in your view, with the hindsight and the lens of 2014, I mean, was there times when this was clearly over the edge, or is it just, you know, it's room for improvement?
I'm going to answer that 2 ways. I'm going to answer it for this guy. Scared to death. You know, but I came from Point St. Charles in Montreal, and Point St. Charles, if you didn't look after yourself, nobody else would. So I had that background. And I think when the hazing begun, they sort of very quickly, you know, it's all about bullies, right? So the bully would go through and pick out the weak, and then pick on the weak, which they did. Physical abuse, of course, you know. Psychological abuse, definitely. Sexual abuse, never. So there was that. That only lasted up until Christmas. After that, what happened is that crew that I showed you, we gelled. And we started protecting the weak and looking after ourselves. From Christmas on, it happened once in a while. It didn't happen all the time. Some of the other hazing was here, shine my boots, press my pants, clean my locker, do those things, clean my weapon, you know, do those things. Friday nights and Saturday nights and Wednesday nights were tough because that's when, you know, the adult beverages would come out and those things would happen. Did we report it? Never. So there was that, protect yourself. Did the senior NCOs and officer knew what was happening? Absolutely. Did the medics know, the hospital know? Absolutely. Nothing was done, was all done. I think they looked at it then as a part of rite of passage. Those that could do it, do it. And that's the way it happened. Now, looking my answer now, absolutely. It should have been looked at, it should have been, and a lot of those people who left, remember I told you before Christmas, would probably still be. So the answer is 2-pronged, Jojo. 1, as a 17-year-old kid, and 2, looking back at bullying, about society and all that, yeah, it should have been something. But did it happen? My belief is, and if you talk to Rick Delorier, probably not as much in his intake, and not as much in my intake as it was in the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th. You know, it all depend on, I always say, the mental stability of the people coming in. There were some mean people. Good people, if they could skate a little better, would do well in the NHL today. They wouldn't score many goals, but they prevented maybe a lot. Does that answer your question? Any other questions?
Actually, I'm not going to ask a question. I'm going to make a comment because I guess I can. Jerry Duguid is my first RSM, and it was an incredible pleasure to work with him because he was equally entertaining in those days. And he used to walk through the regiment every once in a while and go, "I'm going for air kick, I'm going to give you a ride." But here's what I remember most about apprentice soldiers, and Jerry Duguid specifically. I think it's Arctic Red River. I think it's 1989. I think we pull up and there's somebody wants us to build an airfield in a town. And it's going to be one of those jobs where you have to pre-position equipment a year, 2 years in advance, float it across a lake, or drive it across the lake when the lake's frozen, get it into town, get all the aggregate into town. But I'm the OC of 2.5 at the time, and engineer degree from RMC, incredibly well educated.
Oh.
I know how I'm going to do this, Rocky, because I've been in the engineer school, and I'm left there. Jerry Duguid does not get out of the truck and sits in the truck, and I walk out and take a look at this thing and start to do the measurements and walk back and start to write notes. And I'm going to get left because the sergeant major and the CO are going to leave and fly back. I'm going to have to wait for service air somewhere while I write out the reconnaissance report and the plan. And so I walk back to the vehicle after a bunch of hours of doing measurements, and I'm writing up stuff. And Jerry Duguid goes, "It's 2 years if it's a day." And I look at him, so partner goes, "This job is 2 years if it's a day." I said, "Yeah, whatever." So he leaves me in Edmonton. I spend the next 2 days waiting for a plane, write up the report, get to the end and go, "Yeah, it's 2 years." Incredible story.
What a stroke of luck I had. Thank you very much for your attention. I know I babbled on. I just love my career in the military. You love your career from where your starting point is. If you pull the trigger and the gun goes and the bullet goes down range, what a great feeling that is. And my bullet just kept going. And I did a 34-year ride on that. And loved every minute, loved the soldiers. I loved every part of it, all the challenges. And I still do, I still talk about it. What do I miss? People said, "Oh, you missed the Army?" No, I miss the people. I miss the mentality. I miss the engineer sense, right? When I ride on the train or go somewhere, I always look at heavy equipment, ditches, oh, I need a bigger culvert here. You just do that. My wife said, "What are you crazy? What are you talking to?" Oh, now I got my iPhone. I can just click that on and you can. If I knew how to do that. All right. So thanks, folks.